I got it. This is amazing.
All right. I'll kick us off with the first question. So I was curious, with K-pop Demon Hunters, it was in production for a pretty long time, right? About 7 years. I was curious, what was the original idea? How did you come up with it? And how did it change and shift throughout that process?
Well, this question. I had been working in animation for about over 10 years when the idea was movie king. And being Korean, born in Korea, and knowing that Koreans love animation and we produce a lot of it there, but it felt like there should be an animated project that kind of celebrated Korean culture, and it's my culture is the culture I love and I grew up with. So that's kind of where I started when I was thinking about a project that came from my brain. And I don't know why, but demons and demonology felt like a fun visual, something different that we haven't really seen. Specifically the saja, the chosen saja, which is the Great Ranger of Korea, which is what the saja boys are at the end of the movie. For me, that was like always terrifying and as a kid, and it's just a very memorable image. So I kind of started there. So I always knew that I was going to be like a villain character. And so that just naturally led to Demon Hunters with Korean demons. And, at a very saturated superhero market, it felt like there was still some space to kind of expand on that and, showing female superheroes in a way that I feel like we haven't seen before. Very real and grounded, and girls who were, also something in animation that we don't really see is girls and women just looking stupid and making dumb faces, and which is like just the kind of person that I am and the kind of woman I am. So I thought, okay, well, and we see that a lot in K-drama actually. And so it was wanting to see that in animation. So all that kind of came together, and it was like, and it felt like it just needed another idea because, there's a lot of demon ideas. And, thinking through everything Korean, K-pop came to mind. And at the time, a lot of people, it was like the height of BTS, they all went to the army and stuff, like the actual army. And so a lot of studios were trying to figure out a K-pop movie and a K-pop property. And so I was like, well, I wanted to do that too. And it was my husband who is, should I talk about it? No. But a lot of you know him, and he's the one that was like, why don't you just put those together? And when we did that, it felt like this kind of Baby Driver type of, with a lot of fight scenes, choreography, dance mixed in, girls like punching demons in the face, like to the beat, like how Baby Driver does. And that felt really fun and fresh and something we haven't done. And that also opened up the possibility of like shifting into music video gear, like at the drop of a hat, and so it felt really fun and, automatically made the movie a musical. And so literally, actually, so the reason I thought we were thinking about a movie is because thanks to Wish Dragon, Chris's producer, Aaron Orr, who I had also worked with at DreamWorks, he produced all the Shrek movies. He and I were, after Wish Dragon, Chris was very tired, but Aaron wasn't, apparently, and he was, the movie landed at Sony, and so Aaron called me and said, and at that point, we've been trying to find something to do together, and he was like, I'm at Sony now, I'd love to kind of replicate the experience that I had in Wish Dragon, is there something that you can pitch me? And so my kid was sleeping in the back seat, she was like 1, and so my husband and I just drove around Highland Park and came up with this pitch. And literally the next day, we met Aaron for brunch. We brought our kid in a car seat. He brought his fluffy dog, and it was literally pitched as it's a K-pop girl group, but they're secretly demon hunters. And he's like, I love it. Let's do this. And I thought it was a joke, but the next week he had a deal ready, and that's where we were just off to the races. Yeah. But, the success of Wish Dragon really kind of led to the doors opening for a movie like this. And people ask us a lot, was it a struggle to try to make a movie that was very culturally specific and culturally Asian? And the answer is really no, because I think what Strategy proved, like on the Netflix platform and to Sony and these two big studios, that people wanted to see movies like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I hope this is a question for Chris, because that was a lot of pop.
You touched on the opportunity that you got to direct this film. I was wondering, both of you can answer this. What were your personal responsibilities starting out, and were creative decisions made as a pair, and how did that evolve with the process of the film?
Oh, you can definitely. Well,
No. Sorry, we're just doing 5-minute press interviews or in talks. Yes.
It was nice to be able to talk.
Yeah, it's nice to take time, and you guys are interested in the nerdy stuff that we bug. So, it was a great collaboration. I think we get this question a lot, and we never have permit to say because we didn't have any issues. I loved Maggie's vision immediately. My wife is Korean, and she's very funny and weird and silly and stupid and vengeful. So, and she's an author, so she's always like, why don't you have better female characters in animated films? So when I met Maggie to talk about this movie, she was like the one or two best characters that are girls that are funny and stupid, and I'm like, I know it's weird, the white man tell you the bisexual thing. So I think there was a lot of accidental synergy. We both love fashion, we love music, we love, we love sort of comedy mixed up with, as a way to hide maybe some deeper storytelling that you're doing. We love kid dramas, we love, Korean directors. So I think because of that, there's just so much DNA. It was a pretty organic process, and it was very should we do this? What do you think? Does that feel right? Yes? No? Doesn't feel? If it didn't feel good to one of us, it was a no-go. And there were times where we disagreed, but it was a short term. Let's try it. Oh, you were right. That didn't work. Or oh shit, it works. But I think the scenes we wrote, literally I would write a pass, send it to Maggie. She would send me her scene. I would write on that. She would write on mine. Send them back. Email. So it's just a true, day-by-day collaboration. Yeah.
And we shared a brain. It really did. We shared a brain eventually, and there were things that, he was out. And then that's also an advantage to have a direction partner, because these movies get very difficult and very hard, and your brain is just full of information, and you also are going through a lot of stuff, with the studio and just those relationships and really, we didn't fight. It wasn't a difficult movie where we had to fight for everything, but you are constantly fighting for stuff. And it's always nice to have somebody who's knows exactly what you're going through, and even my partner to this. It gives and you come home and you're trying to tell them, but they don't understand the full scope of it, and really we became the only ones that understand exactly what we're going through. So that was really helpful. And but by the end of it, we shared a brain to the point where if one person was out, and taking a little break, the other person could steer the ship confidently. And, there was some decision where we're I need to run it by Chris just to confirm, because I just with a big choice. And I don't know about you, but for me, every time I knew, I know that he would want this too. It was always right. Yeah. So it was great. It was, and it's not, it's very rare, or it's difficult to find a partner that you can be this in sync with. And so I feel I'm very fortunate, and because at first I was I don't need a Dorothy Parker, Christine, I'm dead. And then by the end of it, I was thank goodness I had a partner, because this was very hard to do. And yeah, it was a great collaboration.
Most importantly, you have a complaining friend, so someone you can complain to. Truly,
Yeah, we don't ever want to show those texts.
So to sort of, is this working? Okay. Well, to sort of follow on from that, do you feel like your storytelling styles changed or evolved compared to the previous projects you've worked on? And in that case, do you feel like it was because you influenced each other, or was it collectively? Yeah, just how did your tastes and style change over your career?
Cool question. These are real questions.
Good
Well, I can say a few things that I learned from Maggie. I think that's often happens in the collaboration. I think Maggie has two things that really stood out over the years. She has a really ruthless sense of, am I entertaining the audience? Is this worth anybody's time? But that means, like, not only are you maybe communicating some cool story information, but are you doing it in a way that has device that's entertaining or interesting visually or has momentum? It's a lot of just a respect, I guess, for the audiences in CalArts, and never just phoning something and like, well, it's just a conversation scene, so they'll just talk. There was always a search for something, sort of something else that was interesting going on. And then I think a real, and this is what you need, honestly, to be a director. I think you need to be able to, you don't always have to have the answer, but you need to be able to say no to things that you know aren't your movie pretty definitively and quickly. And you need to be able to articulate, if you don't know exactly the next step, you need to kind of know generally which way is north. Because then all the other talented, smart people can help you get there. And I think those are things that, I don't know, it was really impressive to me that a first-time director was doing all that stuff, I don't know, pretty instinctually. So, yeah.
Oh, nice. We don't ever really discuss Heather. I think, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And, sometimes I can get kind of in the nitty gritty a little bit, I find, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this one joke is not landing and I have to try 8 different versions until we find it. Then, because I can get kind of caught up in that, I sometimes forget the overall kind of, what this theme needs to do. And I think Chris has a much bigger scope of that. And it's because, he's also much more experienced of having written more and, having done this before in his own original movie. So there are times when I'm like into the nitty gritty and he's like, yeah, but this whole thing doesn't work. And it's like, yeah, you're right. So, that was always, that was something I started to keep in mind, and something that you always reminded me of. I also think, really on that, there are times when I was like, this is good enough. I think this is great. And Chris is like, no, let's look at it again. And we would. And even when it kind of came down to like, I don't know, just a word of lyric in a song, I was like, this is great. I think this works. And Chris always questioned it and always went through it, combed through it over and over again. And it just came down to one word and switching, changing that one word. And it made all the difference. And I mean, maybe not all the difference, but like a few degrees of difference. But for us, that is everything. And as a director, like, you want everything. And that's how we operated when we were making this movie. Everything had to be 100% before we let it go. And if we ran out of time, it was like we put every effort into that one thing that was going to go into production so that it was at the 100% level. And I think, that's something I learned from him. And because we work like that, everything in the movie, and in an animated movie, everything is a choice because you start from nothing. There's nothing there, and then you create every single thing. So everything is decided, and every one of those choices were deliberate. And I think I do think that that's one of the reasons why people have reacted like this to this movie and watched it so many times, because they are all finding and cluing into all those little details. So that makes us feel very proud and tells us that it was worth it. It was worth all that effort.
You guys I don't get to talk about this analogy because we're so rarely talking to people who draw, but I think it's one of the coolest things about what you guys are doing or have done in mastering or learning to master, let's say, just drawing. All of those principles that you learn, there is an equivalent of them for writing, just like there is for painting, but for writing, for music, for 90-page script structure. So I think what's really cool is that if you guys decide to get deeper into the writing side, you will find that, for example, that when you're drawing, like the specificity of a gesture, the specificity of the shapes you choose to put in a character design, those two things combine and they create something unique. It's intentional, it's clear, or it's sublime sometimes. And the same applies to the dialogue that a character speaks. The exact choices they do or don't make in the first 20 minutes of your movie, all of those same principles, I guess I would say, were over. So you can kind of like skip some levels. I know when I started screenwriting, I was like, oh shit, I kind of know all this. I don't know how to do it yet, but like, I know what it means to sort of find the least, you guys think so much about the least number of lines you can indicate a gesture with. What are the least number of lines you can put into a scene that it communicates and advances further out? And so I think it's really exciting to be in the arts and be able to like move between all those things. And on this movie, writing music with these amazing songwriters. Is anybody here in the music program here? Awesome, cool. Yeah, so we'll try to talk a little about that because that was so amazing. But same thing, like you see the labor that these poor bastards go into writing. Like a minute, like the first verse and the first pre-chorus and a little bit of the chorus, just to get that to feel effortless and specific. It's the exact same journey that you're going on to a great drawing. So I think that's so cool.
Actually, while on the subject of music, I was kind of curious because I feel like even though this film's a musical, it's not your traditional musical where they're just singing out like at a random point or something. It's like actually like tangible in the film, like they're performing on stage or it's a music video. Yeah. I was curious, how did you guys figure out where you wanted to place music in the film? And also on the music, just what was the song writing process like? Was it back and forth, and did it develop as you like chose spots to put it in?
Start Pell.
Sure. What was the first part? How did we decide?
Yeah, like where you placed it, stuff like that. Was there a formula you guys came up with?
I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but I think we always knew that we would have these kind of big concert moments and song moments where you wanted to, like, for example, the first concert one, that was like the intro of the girls. This is who they are. They are superheroes, but they're also these idols. And so in the storytelling, there were songs that really, were used to define character or a character's journey, or served, for example, a soda pop song is establishing the boys as a threat because, in a bubbly way, because there was, that was the trickiest thing about our movie is everything had so many layers of meaning. And not just the music, but for everything, for dialogue, for character acting, whatever. So, the soda pop song is like, we're here, we're bubbly, but then the subtext is like, but we're going to eat you. So there was always this kind of duality to all the songs. And I think you kind of start to place them, I don't know, it'd be like something minutes for the cadence of the movie, and that also is kind of it happens, and the placement of it happens because of pacing and whatnot. But it did feel like, and he also used music to like heighten moments, right? And so the duet, for example, is literally using music to make these two characters feel like they're uplifted, they're lifting up each other. So I think the placement of the songs just felt natural to us, right? Like I just think it kind of warranted these music moments. And then the process of it was, oh boy, so when we first started and when we pushed the movie, it was exactly like you say, it was a non-traditional musical. And, we thought, and I think I was super naive to the fact that this was going to be a musical. Like, yes, the characters are songwriters or performers, so of course there's going to be music, but we quickly, I don't know why we didn't think of this, but I quickly realized, you can't just have 2 minutes of a pop song. It has to, story has to advance character. And so every song had this task of being a very, pop song that could be play on the radio and compete with all the other K-pop songs out there. But it also had to carry story and have narrative, which hasn't really been done before. And we were working with teams that were pop artists. They were never really tasked with telling story through their songs. So we had an amazing executive music producer named Ian Sapke-Nisengraff, who had worked on a lot of musicals and came from a Broadway background. So he was very story driven, and whenever we had these meetings of talking about music, and we spend hundreds of hours talking about music and the lyrics and every single word of the lyrics. He would drill us on like, what is this song about? What is this character? What is their journey? What is Rui's journey? What does she want? And we were like, oh no, don't pick out the book, gonna get fun music, very threading meeting. And the story stuff that we kind of tabled because they were too difficult to figure out, he forced us to answer those questions in these meetings. And it was this process where the writing of the music helped the story stuff and vice versa. And so it was very collaborative. Even with the songwriters, there was a lot of back and forth, which is really hard when you're trying to figure out a storyboard, and working on your animatic, and you don't really have a song. So for something like How It's Done, when we first meet the girls, we didn't know, we kind of we knew what the vibe of the song was, but we didn't have a song till, I don't know, very late. And you can't really start animating until you have a kind of song, but you can start storyboarding. And the way you do that is you have to really decide on a tempo. And once you do that, you can't really change the tempo, really, because, well, you can, but you have to do that with editing and stuff. But you have to be able to figure out like a tempo so that the board artist can take it and choreograph what the moves are, what the dancing is, what the story beats are, what the little comic beats are, and then once the songs start coming in, and the lyrics get a little bit more specific, you want to go back in there and hash those out. Like there's a lyric where they said, what is it? Like, sit down for the show. I'm getting this wrong. And the demons are like cowering and moving back, and then they sit down. So things like that we wanted to really emphasize and hit because the lyrics were really fun. So it was a lot of back and forth and then really polishing kind of at the end. And that kind of stuff didn't really happen. Maybe it happened in storyboards, but it's things that you could do in animation. So many of these choices kind of happen at every stage because the songs could sometimes take forever to come to us, the final version. So it was a very grueling process, really, and every song was a different process too. Like Soda Pop, we had the song, but then it was a kind of a challenge because that was the first song where we see a lot of choreography, and we needed to juggle a bunch of characters, and we started to learn how to write the songs, but also like how to just go through production at them to first Pam, the soda pop, the boys were information, the five of them, and like how we are, and Gina was always in the middle, and we never broke that formation, which never really happens in K-pop. They always ship day, and everybody kind of gets their spotlight when they're in the lead. And once we realized, oh no, we didn't do that, we had to go back in there and figure that out. So there was a lot of like layers to the things that we learned with every song, I think. Yeah. Want to add?
Oh, I mean, we could talk until midnight each song. They're such a long journey, but I think Golden is a fun one to talk about because it was kind of came late, and it's doing so many things at the same time, which I would like to take credit for, but that was not entirely the plan. One of the things that Maggie knew from the start and was really steadfast on this, like, I wanted to do an origin story. Like, let's come in hot. So let's meet them when they're already famous and awesome or cool. And that was way more interesting, and it's also really typical because the audience often, they want to know something about these girls and where they came from and what they feel and what they want in order to believe in them and be invested. And so we knew eventually we're like, well, we're kind of get this in here somehow in the first 15 minutes. And Ian, our music producer, was always like, you need to have one song. But no, we don't. With an action musical. And slowly and lightly we realized, okay, he's right, but it's not going to be anything like a typical I Want song. And so we did a really nice assignment, which was informed by thinking about these characters for 2 or 3 years. We sat down and wrote like a monologue about how they felt before in their lives, how they felt as young people alone with their problems, what it felt like to find each other and become a part huntress, and what it would mean to them to create a golden home. What did that personally mean? Or somebody like Zoe is like, I literally never felt like I belonged anywhere until I found these 2 girls. And because I could do this and accomplish this goal, I will finally feel like, yes, I deserve to be here. I belong in this group. I went through all the characters. And so you take that and then you mash it up with like what we realized was song-wise, pop song-wise, we didn't want like a singing on the balcony. I wanted something pop, anthemic, dreamy. And so a lot of the song references we ended up using were actually like Biggie on Jutsu, which is literally like, I started with nothing. Christmas missed us like 0 to euro, or 3. Yeah. It's a great, like, they're all problematic, but like Kanye with Eminem and Lil Wayne did like one song together that was all, and there was this great music video. It was about being a legend. I forget the name, but it was done for the NBA, and so you had footage of young LeBron as a kid, and the song is basically about like, I started as nothing and now I'm at the top, but I want more. And that was like a perfect parallel to what the girls were at. We're already amazing, but we don't feel fully fulfilled. We don't feel like we're there yet. We want one more step, reaching for the thing. So you mash all that up, and then you keep it to the board with your system. Some writers say, figure out a way, and then you say no 6 times, 7 times, until everyone's really mad at you. And then finally, the version comes through that is doing all of it and gives you butterflies, and then it's easy. Then you put it in and start boarding. And so that's just one example, but they were all of a similar origin. Man.
Cool. Hello? Sorry, every time I turn this long, it has it. So speaking about the girls as sort of like an in-universe group of performers, having 3 women in a girl group is actually sort of rare for K-pop. I was wondering how you conceptualize that group dynamic, and if there was any like former iterations, maybe you like narrowed it down to 3, and just like, yeah, like how did you conceptualize their personalities, how they work for each other?
Well, I think 3 was not purely, but a lot of it was budgetary. It's like, yes, 3-girl group is very, I know you would think we have that right now, but we did in the 90s, guys, okay? So that's how old I am. So that's what I grew up at, like SES. So it wasn't uncommon, but at first Zoe was like, can we just do one? Like, can she be a soloist? And they're like, no, fine. Like, you need like a whole group. But then I say that, and then we ended up as bisexual. It's kind of. But you know what? Actually, they all share a body, except for Abby, because he's a little bigger. So I think we made him like 20% bigger, but they all share a cellulite. Cellulite. Mm-hmm. And they don't have legs, it's just hands. Yeah. So, yeah, so I think it is a lot of it. A lot of this, deep movies are expensive, so a lot of it does come down to budgeting. And we knew that we wanted a character with very long hair, very flowy hair, and Mira's hair was the most difficult. And because of that, we had to kill a member, or we couldn't so. Yeah, I'm just joking, but it was not a great member, but that was something that you have to take in consideration for these movies. And so having 3 main characters felt like a good compromise. And I don't think more than 3 would have been good. I think the triangle dynamic is something that works. And we knew that from early on that we knew Ruby's story. We knew we wanted her to be half demon, and it's not fun to have the secret and then be a solo artist and have nobody to hide that secret from. So it did make sense that she needed two group mates. So that's how we ended up with 3, and there was no other version really. Yeah.
Hello.
Check a balls away.
Yeah. You have to say at least one word and then it'll work. Anyway, so jumping back to the different art forms that are in this movie, we have the story, the writing, the visuals, the music, and we have the dance. I'm very curious to know how a choreography was approached. Was it purely with storyboard artists, or did you have actual dance choreographers, consultants? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was an interesting mix. With something like the Saji Boy, like soda pop, just very classic boy band kind of 2019 BTS vibes. It was we had storytelling we wanted to do at the storyboard level. We had temp song that we could, as Maggie said, find a tempo, find a editorial rhythm to the scene. And then so much of that scene, even though there's dancing, is character. It's funny dialogue with the girls. It's little moments of figuring out that they're demons. So we kind of, in a sequence like that, you're just figuring that out. And that's kind of the template, because the choreography is essentially just additive. It's not like part of the story in an essential way. So we did that, and then we had... at the time that we finally had our final song, we got choreography reference. Was that Lee Chung? We did that one. Lee Chung.
I guess Lee Chung and K-Tigers.
And K-Tigers. So Lee Chung's a famous K-pop choreographer, is amazing. And then the K-Tigers are this awesome group of mid and soul that are sort of taekwondo, but also they dance. It's so cool. We're like, do you think... Remember we went to visit them, and the whole trip were like, do you think this peanuts writing thing is just stupid and it's not gonna work? And then they did their demo for us, and we're like, yeah, we're like, just do that. So they would do shoot reference, and Maggie's explained this really well in some interviews, because it's animation, as you guys know, it's so expensive every second. So it's not like we can animate the whole thing and shoot coverage and then cut out. It's not like a normal music video. So we had to kind of make a supercut of boards, video clips of choreo, animators coming up with their own choreo, sometimes to fill a gap that we didn't have, and we had kind of an edit of that. And that would be the sort of Frankenstein thing that we would start animating on top. Yeah. And then I think there were, I think something like the finale is an act of choreographing
Mostly animation.
Yeah, it's mostly choreographing story, so that you can do your story twice, like an ultimate climax of make it feel like a Super Bowl halftime show. So that was like story and music choreography, and then it was less about like the dancing part. Yeah. When I forget, there's so much.
Yeah, but the animators were just so passionate about this, like, and so many of them wanted to do this comic games, and so they took on a lot of it. Because sometimes we'd be like, oh no, there's a whole gap here. Like, oh no, we forgot to get choreography for this. Yeah. And once again, it was a budgetary thing. Because I get online, people were like, really, go full choreo, or like, we don't have it. Like, we didn't need full choreo, so we didn't pay for it, really. And so there were some times where we're like, okay, we got this choreography, and then through some story changes, we realized, oh no, we actually see the guys in this shot, but we don't have choreography for it. So then the animators would come in, and there would be, some references they picked from various K-pop artists, but then a lot of it, they kind of just made it up. And, it was great. They did a great job.
So I was kind of curious, topic shift. How did you choose parts of like Korean culture that you wanted to show in it? Because I noticed in parts they're like kajen and like saying stuff like that. I was like, how did you pick and choose? And were there times you had to like pull it back or add more?
Yeah, a lot of it was just.
I turned it off.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I think we did it. I think good.
okay. Yeah. Okay, let's see how it goes. Worry person.
I don't know. I think I'm going to explain it kind of like this. I think a lot of it was just things from my memory, like growing up in Korea, and just things that I felt were very uniquely Korean, like an 80s style bathhouse is not something that you normally even see in Korea, but I wanted it specifically to feel very retro because that's just from my memory of growing up there. And a lot of it was really like, it's like, I want to compare it to like making any sort of fantasy movie or like, I don't know, let's just say, not even fantasy, but like Bug's Life, for example. You guys know Bug's Life, right? So when you're making a movie like that, every single prop and location and design and choices that you make are through the lens of an ant or an insect. And so even like the telescope that they have is like a leaf with a bead of water in it. And it's kind of the same approach that we took where everything in this movie was filtered through the Korean lens. So if they went to a restaurant, what does a table look like? What's the food? Was everything had to look very Korean? And I think once you start to approach things in that way, and that's just another layer of thinking that goes to it. It's just world building. You're building a world, but it's a real world, but it's really world building for any sort of location or with your idea that you have, whether it's fantasy or real. And so, yeah, I get anxious a lot, but it's like, I mean, it's just a collection of Korean stuff, and ultimately it became not just me and my kind of relationship with Korea and what my memories are, but all the crew members that were Korean and not even Korean, ones that went to Korea on a trip or saw K-drama and remember something. It wasn't all through my lens, it was through the entire team. And so that's how so much of the movie became Korean. And we always look for very specific moments. Like one of them is when Rooney reads a note from Chinu and she's like, and just that reaction is like very, I think is a very Korean reaction. And so we found these moments where we wanted to push that kind of acting. And there were moments where we felt like the Korean language is very much like we talk like this, where it's like and so it tends to be more of a rounded shape of the mouth, And that's the thing we kind of figured out a little later, and we realized once we rounded the corners, it became funnier, but also just really suited the language. We want to hit this look where even though the girls are speaking English, I wanted it to feel like they were speaking Korean. And I think we succeeded in that, because a lot of people tell me, if you watch this movie in the Korean dub, it looks like it's made for that, which is really cool. And so, yeah, like I think it's just a collection of things that I liked, and then also things that Chris liked about Korea and what the group liked. So it just became this passionate project there. And, you know, a lot of the crew members that were not Korean, they educated themselves. They watched Korean dramas and you know, they were like, I never listened to K-pop before, but I'm listening to it now. And I remember I had a story, Ryan Sabas was like, they went to a Blackpink concert, and he's like, the next day I was like, how was it? And I looked at him wearing this Blackpink shirt. He's like, I'm a pilot, like, no. So, you know, it was all of this love, really, for the culture and appreciation for it. And we had members who were like learning Korean and taking dance classes because they just wanted to know more about the culture that they were, you know, making a movie about. So it was really, really cool, you know.
So you spoke about trying to sort of expose Korea's poker to a wider audience. The industry has changed a lot since you both started. How do you see the future of original animated films, especially those that like center diverse voices like K-pop, Demon Hunters, and Wish Dragon?
I can start. You know, like I did not think that this movie would be so well embraced, you know. And when we make this movie, I get asked this a lot too, especially in Korea. They were like, "But what made you think that he didn't have to explain it?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you go visit a country and you don't get off the airport, you don't come out of the airport and someone's like, okay, look, so this is how we do this here, and then this, like, I mean, maybe, like, you can do that research, but, like, nobody really does that. And I think that's the beauty of traveling, is you go to a foreign place and you figure out as you go, like, oh, okay, this is what a bus looks like here. Okay, this is how I paid for, you know, a pack of Ghana at the convenience store. And I think that's the approach we took. We just wanted to throw people into Korean culture and be like, this is how it is. Just show it the way it is and just have people figure it out. And if people are worried about that stuff, you better look at your story, because that's not working. You know, so and everything that is culturally specific that need explanation is because your character is taking you there, like going to the healer's office and getting, you know, that's like, there's a reason why they're going there. And I mean, Bakaizen, like, looks like a doctor, but come on. But there's also like just the similarities and clues that people pick up on, because the audience is so smart. So you go there and you don't explain anything, but everybody understands that he's a doctor. He's somebody who's kind of, well, cool guy. So that's why I totally forgot what your question is, but I feel like I'm answering it.
I think I remember the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for me. One of the new things about my generation, and then even your generation, the world is a much smaller place, and you guys probably have friends from your love of art and online that are all over the world, and you're speaking this shared language of drawing and animation. So it's like, I think there's like a lot. For example, I watched my first Korean film when I was 20, My Sassy Girlfriend. You guys know that? It's like one of the, and girlfriend is just beating up her boyfriend the whole week. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I met my wife, and like, I had a lived experience of like falling in love with Korean food, seeing The Host for the first time. Maggie and I really bonded because The Host was like a eye-opening film for us of like, how are you doing this, all this tone?
We're allowed to do it.
Yeah. I fell in love with K-dramas the exact way that all the dads you see on TikTok fell in love with Tissy Movie, which is reluctantly watching from the edge of the living room, being like, what is this? And then like 3 hours later, I'm like, well, they're fucking right. I learned how incredibly hot Korea men could be. I sort of watched my wife realize that she made a terrible mistake. So it's weird. It's awkward to say as like a white guy who grew up in Idaho that it's a personal movie for me, but that just happens to be my life, and it's different than you would imagine. And so when we made this movie, it was incredibly rewarding. And I know a tiny bit really about Korea, and I know the little bit that I've learned secondhand. But I have a son. He's 5. He's half Korean, and like he watched this movie and. He's like kind of lukewarm about speaking Korean. His grandparents are trying to hammer it into him, and he knew the movie was a big deal. He was a little scared to watch it. He finally watched it, and the first song hits, and he looks up at me with big eyes, and he's like, "Daddy, they're speaking Korean." And I was like, I got real, and I got to go in the other fucking room. But I think that's, that when my wife grew up, that was a liability. And I think I'm whatever my relationship to that is, I'm really proud that this movie will be something that he can look at as a half-Korean can feel like, fuck yeah. So I don't know, that's a personal answer, but I think, as you can tell, original ID is personal. And like, if you know Maggie and you watch this movie, you're just watching Maggie. Like, and someday they'll release like the reference cut of all the videos of her acting out the scenes, and it's just like it's 90 minutes of Maggie. So that again, I think the audience knows that it comes from the heart, and that makes it unique, and then they reward you for that. So.
Thank you both so much for that insight. It's really sweet to hear. So I want to sidestep a little away from the film directly, but in keeping with cultural specificity. And because we're all artists who hope to be in the animation industry, I'm wondering if you have any advice for students who are building portfolios and want to highlight this cultural specificity, whichever culture that may be, whether it be their own or is like ways to discover otherwise, like other cultures that can be ingrained into their work to then be hired on these culturally specific films. Sorry, that was a really messily asked question, but maybe you're getting what I'm trying to get.
Anytime you're doing anything that you think is very specific and very personal, it's really scary. And I definitely felt that making this movie, and for the first time in my life had a weird identity crisis, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I Korean enough to make this movie? Like, am I representing this correctly? And you have to art is so personal, and everybody has a different relationship to their culture, but also to art. And so I think the advice that I would like to give all of you is don't be afraid to just go for it and just do it. And there were times when I was really scared. I mean, even just doing these corn eye gag, I was like, this is stupid. Like I know it's stupid, but is it the right stupid? Are people is it right? Like, and you just have to try, and And I think I was very fortunate to have a crew that was like totally game, and an editor who was like, yeah, let's try everything. And we tried a lot of really bad stuff. But we also tried a lot of really great things, and that's what ended up in the movie. And I think, it also, like, it's really important to help each other and show people your work. And I think, as a student and even earlier in my career, I was so afraid. I was so afraid of rejection and disapproval that I barely spoke up in story meetings. And actually, since you guys lived in Jago so much, and the Jago, I got that job because I was friends with these two guys who went over and became directors, and they were looking for a head of story, and they asked this one other guy, and he said no, so they went, okay, let's ask Maggie. So I was second choice anyway, which I found out later. So I got that job, and I was like, okay, so now I'm a head of story, and I really need to speak up. Like, that's literally my job. I can just sit there. And so that's part of the reason why I took that job, because I was like, I need to come out of my shell. I need to challenge myself. And the first week there was a story pitch, and everybody was like, oh, we don't know if this is the right thing. And it was the introduction to Garbiran, who's the villain, and him addressing his minis after he lost this huge battle once again, and it wasn't quite working. And I actually haven't seen the final movie. That's a long story. It doesn't. Anyway, but the version that I had pitched was, well, what if he starts with how was everybody's weekend, and it's really tense, and everybody's like, but then that's how he breaks the ice, and this one guy's like, whoa, yeah, it was great. He's like, but what did you do? Oh, I went camping with my family. He's like, oh, great. And then he like kills him or something. And the entire room burst laughing. And I remember when I pitched that off, my heart was jumping out of my chest. And I didn't know what people were thinking. The room exploded. And at that moment, I felt like, wow, I can do this. And I think everybody just needs to find that moment. And to find it, you need courage. You need to really believe in your idea and pitch it. And I hope, whoever's in animation and wants to get into story, you guys pitch to each other at the very least, because that's what that was literally our job. Every day is to pitch this movie. And even after the movie, we're pitching the movie. And because the movie, you're making, if you want to get into film, you're making stuff for the world to see. So you shouldn't be scared to show one person, because you're trying to make something that millions of people are going to see. So you have to start practicing that, and especially those of you who want to go into filmmaking and writing and storyboarding, it's not about the drawing. It's about what the drawing is, what is about the idea, and it's about tone, and it's about your voice and what makes things different. And if you look at all the films, they're all about the same stuff: people wanting love, acceptance, survival. It's just all the nuances of it, all the voices that come in, the point of view of it, what type of character it is. That's what makes all these stories different. And that only comes from you. And so you have to lean into that. There's nobody else in the world like you, and then you need to tell your story or your version of something, or your version of, I don't know, even a prop. It's all about point of view. So just really nurture that, and don't be afraid to do stuff. And if you're afraid, that's probably good, because it means that nobody else has done it.
What a good answer, you guys.
But I also forgot the question.
No, and that's so well said. And I think the only thing I would add is to kind of reiterate. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's just think about it as like you guys who put it drawing. You're interested in storyboarding or animating or directing, which is, basically, it's almost like wearing keep you stand up, or a lot are failing. But within the process of failing, you are learning. It's like you're going in a wind tunnel and trying out different paper airplanes and watching the ones that just disintegrate, the ones that actually take flight. And you cannot get better at that in isolation. You don't know what it's. Every movie is the same. You write stuff, you board it, you record the scratch. You're like, this is fucking awesome. It's gonna work. You put it in editorial, and it's horrible. And you're like, I don't know how to do this job, and you have to go figure it out. So, your ideas, even the sequence or a singular gag, or pitching a whole idea for a film in 10 or 15 minutes, just keep trying it and pay attention. Your best friend, you can subject them to this, this your story. And if you are paying attention and you have figured out how to tell your story with the right moments of engagement and the right twists and turns, they all will stay interested, You've all been able to explain like a movie that you love to your friend, and they're going, oh, because that was a really well-told story. And if your story isn't figured out, trust me, even your best friend, as much as they might still be looking at you, you'll see in their eyes, they'll just go somewhere else. And so that's your wind tunnel, and you can try. You can pitch it and get like, okay, I have a good start, but I actually have no idea where I'm going here. And so I got to figure that out. Then they changed how I started. And I think that process, I'm so sorry to all my friends, but that process really helped me in my 20s and 30s to figure out how to write. And it is scary, but it's important.
I have one other thing to add. You also, when you're in this business, you don't make things on your own. You don't really at school, all right, just from my experience, there's a lot of you're just at your desk or you're just working on your own thing. But you start working, it's really not like that. You get your assignments, if you're a story artist, you get your scene and you work on it, but then that fits into a bigger show or movie or an episode. And so you're never working in a bubble, so you have to collaborate with people. If you are just, only one person show, that does happen, but I know that the majority of you will not have that kind of career. So it's really important to start thinking about that and getting people's feedback and working together. And you guys are going to professionally work together to that's just how it happens. And we will work with you too. So you have to think about the community of artists. And we're very small. We all know each other. We all help each other out. So, you're part of a community, and you will work with that community professionally. So, yeah, it's something good to remember.
So, to transition to something that might help the audience too, I was curious, when you're working on a film, I feel like there's so many moving parts, and especially on this one, you're talking about how you're still working on choreography. It was a mix of real footage, boards. Was there a point when everything just kind of clicked and you knew it was working? And did you think it would be as big as it was?
With animation, you just run out of time. That people tend to say. And you just try to make it the best it can be until your time runs out. And the way the kind of pipeline and workflow works is, fortunately for animation, it's kind of it's a funnel. You work really big scale and big picture, and then you start to work and hone down scenes, and you recognize the few scenes when your producer is like, okay, we're going into production, or we're going into layout, or we're going to this. They're like, okay, we have to ship 5 scenes into layout next week. And you're like, oh no, which one? And then you have to make the hard decision of which ones are actually ready. And the further along the pipeline they go, the harder it is to start. You run out of time to fix things. And, for us, it's the most important thing, which is story stuff. So once you get things into layout, there's still time to fix stuff. And because of writing, and you haven't started an animation, you haven't started doing the acting and being married to the dialogue. So it's just a tactical thing where you have to kind of put certain things into production and and then it's a slow bake, but it gets real fast. And I've been kind of comparing it to like Tetris. You know, Tetris, like you start playing it. Do people know Tetris in Korea? So you start playing and you're like, oh, this is easy. I got the hang of it. And then it just gets faster. And you're like, oh, okay. The things that I planned for, I'm waiting for that big long one. You know, and you're like, where is it? Oh my God, where is it? And then it comes and goes, oh my God. And you put it, so it kind of is that kind of cadence, I think.
Oh, sorry. Shaggy. Sorry, this is our projectionist, Shaggy. We're just going to swap out the battery.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then as production gets faster and faster, and it does get faster, you're like, oh my gosh. And then the last, I don't know, 6 months are crazy stressful because it comes down to like, you did, you know, for me, it's like 6-7 years of work. And it comes down to like things getting done on the next stage or whatever, and everything can mess up. So it's like a weird, stressful process. I don't know if it's like that.
I got so stressed listening to that. Yeah, I think the other, the thing that's maybe really wonderful about it and also scary, and you guys experience this on a smaller scale so far, but you will, which is for any of the final product. You've seen that movie Children of Men? Do you remember that oneer where they're carrying a baby through the war zone and it's like a 5-minute one shot? That's animation, which is you have to give birth to something that you love with all your heart and want to carry through a war zone. And every stage, in some ways, is a story, animation, layout, lighting, effects, edit, music, whatever. As it goes through that, you're trying to make it better, and usually you are, and you're probably more and more in love with it. But also, at every stage, it can die. And so it doesn't matter if you got the baby all the way to like the 49th story of the building and then it got shot, it still died. So like Meg, we on this movie, we had a really stressful final mix because the songs that they mixed for a pop track, and when we put them into 5.1 in Atmos, they sounded terrible, and that was mixed down, and that was what everyone was going to hear. So, and these movies, the songs, as you know, are the soul of the movie, and so we were like just aging 10 years a day, trying to see if there's a way to fix the mix before it gets sent to Netflix, and we did. But it's kind of this wonderful and terrible thing that you sign up for, which is to work so hard and fall in love with the thing you're doing that you want to keep making it better each day. And also, it's just scary because it can fall apart at any time. And if you're up for that, then this is the job for you.
Oh, so stressful.
Speaking about how we balance each aspect, each different department for the final look of the film, I want to speak about a more technical aspect. I was very surprised to learn the Sergeant Boys have no legs. I was wondering how you achieved a lot of the very exaggerated rigs and special poses of the characters, and were there any special approaches or any new technical discoveries when making these looks?
Josh,
Yeah, with Stretch Beverage.
See you last year.
Yeah, a big, huge part of that is Spy and Spa, the animation team there. As you guys know, they're like super technical and super innovative, and basically, I think the best thing about them was they're like, we don't want to do something we've done before. And we're like, cool, because we're going to do some weird shit. Well, because you have 4 eyes, and they're like, cool, let's do it. So they have technical expertise, and that goes as far back as like all the stuff they did, the very post-to-bow stuff they did for Gendy's work, which teaches you a lot about sort of fudging 3D the way you would want to do 2D. And then I think Maggie could speak to kind of like little tiny details that went into like getting these curls performances to feel all the things we want them to be, that were, some of it was crushed and some of the stuff we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can really speak to it too much because I mean, we just ask for things and they just do it. It's kind of our relationship with Spy, and they're so fearless and just they're gay for anything, which is so incredible. And it's one of those rare places, and I don't know, maybe the only place in the world that are able to fully do R&D as we are in full production. Like, I think we didn't have a lot of time to do that, and so we were working everything into shots. And some of the crazy stuff we've done, I think when you watch the Saja boys dancing, there's a lot of they're not even really smears. They would elongate the legs like this, become noodly. Very a lot of things a lot of tricks like that we used. There's some smearing too, but it comes down to, I think, artistry. Even those crazy faces, the yeah faces, those were drawn by Scott Wasbanavi, and there's a lot of back and forth between Sky and him doing drawovers that we didn't even see. That's a part of the reviews that happen before it comes to us to review the final thing. So, I think Spy is they just know how to. They have such an artistic eye, and then also the technical ability to be able to pull it off. So, I wish somebody at Spy was here to speak on that. But that's the extent that I know. It's just magic. Sometimes there's magic that Ali says. There are some animators who would go in there and sculpt every single pose that the model couldn't really give them. And we had an amazing animator named, I don't remember his last name. His name is Malik, and he was based in Montreal. And so in the very beginning, when we see the girls Rumi chomping down the kippap, and there's a little cheapy moment where Zoe turned and she's like, does this, and the Sandra boys at the variety show doing the hot sauce, that is Malik doing amazing sculpting work to land those poses. So there's a lot of tricks that happen that that seem for us just seamless, but then it's so much hours and hours of work in artistry that goes into it.
Wow. That's awesome.
So, with the roaring success of this film, as far as I'm aware, a sequel has been greenlit.
Oh, you guys are going to ask us that too?
I'm aware that there's things you can and cannot say. So I'm more curious about anything that you had hoped to be able to tell, any missed opportunities you felt from this first movie that you hope to take advantage of this time around, or any, whether they be narratively or just from a directorial standpoint.
I mean, I don't know, when you were making these things, I don't know, 6 years ago, when we were still trying to figure out everything, there's so many ideas that just left, that maybe just doesn't have room for. So there's a lot of things that were just ideas, and then there's actually full scenes and things that we tried out. There's music we tried out, full songs, demos that we've gotten that were amazing, but just didn't have space in this movie. And there's I don't know, I don't think we have any regrets or anything about what's in the movie. And there's also, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's also this weird idea that there's 3-hour cut of the movie. But do you guys know how hard it is to just have one cut of, let alone two? That's, we only have one cut, and if there's another cut happening, that means there's a problem. The problem with the studio or with the directors, and that was never the case. That is totally false. If we had even 5-10 minutes more of screen time, and all of this is budgetary, again, because some of these movies, it costs more than $1 million per minute to make. So if we had more time, I think we both agree that we would have padded out moments and not added anything more. we're very happy with where the movie is, and this is the movie we wanted to make, and the story that we wanted to tell. So there's zero fat in it because we weren't allowed any of that. But if we were allowed time, we would have padded it with a little bit more fat, I think. Yeah. And in terms of the sequel, this feels like if nothing else came out of this universe, I think people would come after us. So, and I think with the studios too, like it's just money left on the table. I think, at this point, we haven't seen. I didn't think a movie could even do this. It's beyond our expectations, and just the reaction globally is just. I've never seen this in my lifetime. So we're really proud that an animated movie has done this, or just giving us the industry hope, and especially for original IP. And I think if there wasn't more, then it would be a waste. Really. So we're excited about the possibility and there being more. And of course, there's more things that we can do with it. So yeah.
I was curious, what are some things you recommend to students that they could learn and practice while in school that might be harder to do in the industry?
No, another good question. You have anything? I mean, one thing I will say is, it might be counterintuitive, but you have to learn your craft, whatever it might be, whatever level you're at. And you also have to live. You have to go out and then take in the world, because my favorite quote about movies is Foucault, who said a great movie has spectacle and truth. And those are both really hard to do. You can't have any truth if you haven't been in the world, whatever it might be. And it might not be useful to you for a decade, So I think that's really important, because that is kind of the fuel. Otherwise, and I think it's something that Maggie and I have in common, which is we love animation. We love doing it. We also love a lot of things outside of animation in terms of our filmmaking influences. And I think it's very easy to get in a zone where you're kind of doing a photocopy of a photocopy, but you're only looking at previous animated stuff. And so I would encourage you guys you already love animation, you're already passionate about it, but go out and take in all the other art and all the other human experiences that are out there, and those will give you fuel that only you can have, and that's going to make you a better artist, a more specific artist than the skills that you guys probably mostly already have even for years.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm going to say the same.
Live your life. Become travel, listen to music, learn about different cultures, go eat food, and just enjoy your life. It gets harder when you have a job. And I think one of the best years of my life was when I did start working, and you had for money, and you're like able to afford those trips. And the thing about trips is, if there's an opportunity for you to travel, I tend to just jump on it, and they'll be like, well, I can travel like some other time. Like, you'll never really do that, So that's kind of what I did. That was kind of a rule for myself when I was in my younger days. If there was an opportunity to travel somewhere and I could make it work, I just did it. And those were the best experiences. And it's always just really helpful to like get out of your shell, get out of your bubble, go explore, go live in a different city if you've never done that before. Just live your life, and all those experiences you may not think are that impactful, in the moment, but they are. and they add up. And the more you do, the more you want to do. Everything is practice. So like even travel, even those that, some people might find that scary or too difficult or a hassle, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it's just building those life experiences. And, when you're working on art, you're telling stories about life. So you need to live your life in order to do them. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah. Thank you.
I was also wondering, just sort of after the experience of directing this movie, whether there's any sort of more stories that you're itching to tell, and whether this movie has shaped the way that you do tell stories, if at all, and what kind of narratives that you gravitate to.
It's your turn.
Yes, I think every film you make is probably, maybe equivalent to like you guys know how big a year can feel in school. You're like, I am a different person than the first year. I have an entirely different goal in my career. So every film you make, even if it takes 4 or 5 years, that's a long time, and you're growing a lot as a person. For me, I think it's interesting because like I inadvertently have only directed original stuff, and in all those cases it's been things that were kind of out of left field, and that I don't know, it's almost like indie filmmaking a little bit, even though you have lots of resources and money, but you have your weird vision that you think could be something special. You persuade the studio, but when you're making original stuff, you are being second guessed the whole time, for good reason. There's no precedent. There's no we already know Toy Story. We know who Woody is. But I really enjoy that. I think it's really fulfilling, and it's really, I don't know, you're constantly having to kind of prove yourself, and that's a fun environment to be in. So I think I'll always want to do that. When we finished this movie, it was the first time in my career where the idea of, usually when you finish a movie, you're a little fucking tired of the characters. You've suffered a lot and you're really proud of it, but it's a long journey. With this movie, it was the first time, maybe because it encompasses so many things that I personally love, and that we were rapping, and I was like, oh shit, I want to write more songs. I want to spend more time with these weird girls, and I want to do more shots of Genu. So I think that's a first for me, and kind of interesting to go through, but it's just very personal and probably dinner for everybody based on where they're at in my career.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, yeah, part of me is like, I could just retire, right? But then that'll be, it was so hard to make. No, it for me, really, this movie was so personal, and to the point where sometimes my face is on the screen. I acted out all those things, and like I said before, it was very scary, but I didn't want to. I kind of approached this movie with I may not direct anything else in my life. I may not get this opportunity, so I just wanted it to be the best that it could be, and the best that I could make it, and put everything of myself in it, and with no regrets. And at one point, because it became so personal to me, and I told my husband, if people don't like this, I probably should never make. And with this response, I'm like, well, I guess I can make more. And well, it seems like people like what I can do. So that makes me, want to dig up my old ideas and look at them. And so it's been great, it's been, and it's kind of, I want to do more and tell more stories. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that. And I just don't think I'm not a person who's going to be wanting to not do this. I think I want to do this forever, or as long as I can, because I just love it. And it gets really hard. And, You know, sometimes I want to die, but there's so many amazing moments. And just yesterday we went back to spa to meet the crew and you know, have a toast, and it was just so great to see our old crew again. And that's also a big part of this is like, you know, you don't do this alone, you do it with a family. And, you know, our cast and crew and everybody who worked on this are our family now, and we are forever connected through this movie. And so, you know, when you have that once, you kind of want to keep doing that. It's like a drug, you know, you just want to keep doing it. And there's little perks that, you know, and milestones that you hit it that are so wonderful that you just want that feeling again. So it's really fun. It's fun, guys. Like, you're making is hard, but and everything you make is like is so hard, and it's a miracle that any of these things get made, because at any, like what Chris is saying, like at one point, at any point it could just all die. Like funding could just suddenly go away. You don't know what's gonna happen, but it's really fun.
Right. Thank you both so much. I don't wish to hijack this too long, but going back to living life, this is my reminder, especially to first years, that we are very lucky to go to a school with a dance department, a music school, theater. Please, I ask you to go and see the things that are on offer outside of our department, because there's so many wonderful things that we can learn from. Anyway, my final question on behalf of myself and the moderators: is there a question that you have not been asked throughout your press tour that you maybe would like to have been asked and would like to answer yourself? We can ask this a lot. Yeah, I bet.
And then we're like, do we want to ask ourselves more? Sorry. No, I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a good covered thing. Is there anything we haven't talked about that could be fun? No.
Should we take questions? Can we take questions from down?
Oh. Yeah, can we do that?
That's probably more.
It's probably energy thing than us making adult questions for ourselves.
I think the first head I saw was holiday, so.
Second, we're going to take you. Say your name and your year.
Hi, my name is Starlin. I'm in BFA 4. My question is, I know you briefly, Matt, mentioned your love for fashion and that got integrated into the film, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh. I mean, yeah, we both love fashion and like haute couture, and for me, like, one of the things I would love to at one point learn is to make couture. Like, I see, you know, videos of, like, on Instagram, like Alexander McQueen couture being made and pattern making. I would love to do that. I love sewing. You know, growing up, I wasn't like, I was artistic, but in a way where I like to make things more than draw. And the only times I drew was when I wrote short stories, even as a kid, like as like a second grader or something. So I loved crafts, and so that's something that I would love to do. And just even when we started talking about the aesthetic of this movie, we pulled from Vogue magazine's editorial photo shoots, and that was kind of our, you know, like our goal was to show animation and lighting and color through that Vogue, you know, aesthetic and lens, and so that was really fun to do. And I forget what it is. Garth and I talked about this, but I think the official number is 26 costume changes for Rumi. And costume change, by costume changes we mean, like, you know, she's in one outfit, but then another look is like her, the same outfit with patterns. So there's, you know, variations of the character. We had 26, and I think we had something like, I don't know, like more than a dozen like costume changes, which is the most in any animated movie, and that drove our producer crazy. That was really fun to do, and that was one of the things. You know, this movie is a collection of the things that we love, and because we love animation, we wanted to see it in animation. And so fashion, makeup, like, I don't think I've ever seen good
women's makeup on a character before, so that would get like our production designer Helen and I were like, let's freaking do that for once. Like, let's not have purple eyeshadow for once. So that was those were things that we really wanted to do, and every detail in their costume was done with so much care and love, and once again, it's details that everybody picks up and notices, and until we didn't want to skimp out on those details. So yes.
Yeah, no, that's a. I think that summarizes how much we loved it, and great credit to people like Helen and Scott and Celine and Uni, all the artists in our visit department who, this was their first time like getting some Givenchy thing from 1920, be like this, or a Hugler jacket, or like, it's just good design. And that's what it took a few kind of months to break through that, but then I could see all of them get like, oh shit, this is just a cool, great, any good design is timeless. And it follows the same rules that we all learn before designing animation stuff. So I felt like it was really rewarding to watch them like lock in on that stuff and the drawings speak for themselves, and then to watch you go through all the departments, because there were definitely so much of this movie as we got into production was, for example, we were like, okay, these Sazu boys, they need to be like hot, you guys. And then the first pass of animation, or even modeling, be like, they're cute. Or we're like, no. And finally, some animators would click on it. They play us their shot. We're like, oh my God, that, yes, everybody, that, yes. And we show them gifts of K-dramas and all that. And it would get to the lighting department. This is my favorite thing in the lighting department. So we'd light, and have a shot of Gino, and we'd be talking about all these, because Korean cinematography, they do certain things a little differently. There's different spec lights, there's different rep lights to try and flatter Korean faces, and they're the best in the world at it. And we were trying to match that, and it's very editorial. And so people would try, and they would use more typical lighting techniques in animation and be okay, but didn't stand out. And then finally we'd see a shot of Gino, and it'd be like, oh my God, he's... Yeah, right. Whose shot is this? And we're on like a Zoom call, right? And there's like 100 Zoom boxes on the screen with their cameras on. And then one camera would turn on, there'd be this woman in the light department like this knee. So I felt like one of the things that Maggie really, I thought, brought her vision is like, we are going to objectify the shit out of Lemaire. It's time. It's been too long. And in every department, it was like a slow awakening of that. And it was like, oh yes. Okay.
But the too, like the like there were like straight dudes in the animation department. They animated that your idol scene, like the sexy dancing and stuff at the eye, and so we were like, did we ask for this? And they're like, you didn't really, but you really did. So it was this thing where like everybody wanted to see this kind of Bluebee and these kind of characters, like, and they did brought it, like, and there's just so much love for wanting to do this, like fashion, the animation, just all of this. So it was like everybody was just so excited that they were getting to do this kind of stuff.
Costume design. She's raised hope. I saw Claire's hand go up. Sorry.
Also, it's so cool how you guys stuff with our makeup look too. Yeah. It was really cool. And so, but
yeah, the no makeup look was very important to me because it was, it's just. And when you watch the movie, it's only used in the times when the girls are the most vulnerable with each other. And that was another thing of like showing different sides of women and the realness and stuff. And so that was very important.
Hello. It's on. Hello. Okay. Anyway, so it's pretty loud, yeah. And I'm an action strobe artist. I just graduated CalArts, and so as a storyboard artist who would like to become a director one day, I would like to know, and this question is for you, Maggie, by the way.
Yeah.
And so, is there anything you learned as a storyboard artist that really benefited you in writing and directing? And also, is there anything you wish you knew earlier on your career? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you say? You're an action story artist?
Yes, I'm an action storyboard artist. I recently graduated from CalArts.
I mean, to be a director, you have to know story. That's just the bottom line. You have to know character. You have to know how to build character. You have to know how to create and write moments. And so for me, coming up from a storyboarding background, that was what I learned. Oh. It's like a movie screen. For anybody who wants to be a story artist, early in my career, when I first started, I was like, okay, I really need to just learn the craft of like. And I wanted to just really concentrate on drawing skills and just getting to a place where I just want to be able to draw, because that's the way you communicate, right? I just want to be able to draw what's in my head. And I think after about 5 years, I was kind of there, and I was very confident. And but every single time I got to see, I was like, oh my gosh, how do they think I could do this? Like, there's this weird thing where like, and I think it was about at the 5-year mark, I really truly understood what my job was, which was, it doesn't matter what the drawings are. It's all about the ideas. It's about the writing. And because I did know that I wanted to be a director someday, I looked at my colleagues and just to see the story department. And I started DreamWorks when Shrek 2 came out. And that movie was written by story artists. And I didn't see a very clear divide between, not like a divide fly, but just a different, there are two pools of story artists. Ones who were writers and they didn't draw as well. They weren't technically as good. And then there was the pool of artists who were amazing draftsmen. And the ones that I saw get the promotions to become head of story, to become directors, were in the writing side. So I clearly recognized that, and I was like, oh, okay. So if I want to be a director, I have to kind of abandon becoming a very good draftsman and concentrate on the other stuff. So I did, and that's that is kind of what you need to do, and all those guys are now, it's like Peter Ramsey and Barbara Zacchetti and, so they're all directors and I have Mike Mitchell. And so, people are great artists, but I'm just talking about kind of more of a classical, approach. So the story is really everything. And, and it also goes back to what I said before, which is your point of view and on a story or a character or anything. And because there's a reason why things Alice in Wonderland, that story gets told 1 million times, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They're doing another Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's how many of those do we need? But every single one is different because it's told through a different lens and told by different directors. So it all comes down to story. So it's just really honing in your story skills and writing skills.
How do you show your story chops when you're working on a production? Or how do you get pegged as the story side?
What do you mean, in terms of?
Yeah, when you're working on a production, how do you show if you're working for an assignment and you have a scene, how do you show that you're good at story and you're advancing the story and stuff like that?
There's ways to tell. So if you take one scene, for example, because as an artist, as a story artist, you're given an assignment of figuring out a scene. And sometimes you'll get script pages, and sometimes you'll get an outline.
or sometimes you'll just get, hey, this needs to do XYZ. I'll take one of the scenes that I boarded in the scene in the movie, for example. I don't know which. So the scene where Rumi is in her bedroom and Derby's there, and she starts to sing and doesn't really like the lyrics, and Mira comes in and they have this conversation. So that scene, we didn't really exist for a while. It was kind of screen 3 or 4 where we realized we don't have a scene where Rumi, it had to do a bunch of different things. It had to kind of convey Rumi's, becoming a little torn, right? Now that she's meeting Jinu, she's thinking differently about demons and from what she's been told all her life. And then the interaction of Mira coming in and the two of them having this conversation where things are kind of off and they're not really seeing eye to eye anymore. So that could easily be a conversation scene, right? And when you get script pages, it could just be that. But, we soon realized that it's not fun to just have two people talking. So in another way to inject comedy into it, we added Derby into that scene. And that way you get it. Now this dynamic where these two characters are talking and Rumi saying, no, I'm not hiding secrets from you, but visually we have this tiger that is in the ruin present that is very cute, but also injecting comedy into that scene. So there's these multi-layer ways of that you can make a scene entertaining. And that's really all it is entertainment. We work in entertainment, we are making movies for the masses. So yes, I don't know, you could call us sellouts or whatever, but this is the crap that we chose and this is a business. And if you guys want a job, you are going into a business. And I think that's something that a lot of students kind of forget too. What I also get asked a lot is, how do I protect my creative vision as an artist, but also work on somebody else's project? Guys, you're kind of a cog in the wheel, or the I don't know what the saying, but forget. But you have to do that before you are able to do movies that are very personal to you. But there are ways where you can inject your creativity into it, and that is how you do it. You take a scene that could just be two characters talking, and then you come up with the idea of, what? I think this could be fun if there was a visual thing that is representing how Rumi is actually hiding something from Mira, and also that is what makes story artists great, is those ideas that are adding to the comedy, to the entertainment, but also emphasizing story points, character points. And those are truly the artists that are great writers and considered writers, because you are injecting a new idea into something that's already being presented to you. And you're also, it's animation, so you're also doing it in a visual way. So always thinking about, how do I make this concept the best that it could be in a visual way and in the most entertaining way? And that is what our job is as story artists, really.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You got this microphone.
Yeah.
So we got a couple more questions. Who has a pick? Actually, do you want to...
I saw Matthew throw his hand up.
Hi. Hi, I'm Matthew, BFA 3 in character animation. I guess my question would be do you have any advice, especially for people who are making films, to kind of find the balance between making something that would find a good audience, but also something that you want to make, but is also something that's just fun to work on in general? How do you find that sort of project that sort of kind of meets all of those things that you want out of a good film?
What do you think?
Great. It's pretty slippery to try and get all those together, right? And also pretty hard to predict if the thing that you care about, other people will care about, So you can't control all of it. It's interesting. I think I guess what I would say is when I was in school, my teachers, second, third, fourth year were like, so you guys are learning to draw, you're learning to paint. This was art center, so I wasn't learning shit about story, but later, I guess. And they're like, you'll actually know how to truly draw, 5, 7 years. And I was like, nah, man, I miss with this term. And then like 7 years later, I'm like, oh, I finally know how to draw today. So, even the very greatest, like Miyazaki's not directing his first film until he's 40, late 30s. And what I see a lot in student films, which is totally fine, is like wanting to do it all. You want it to be all these things. You want it to represent, and you have the skills to do some of them and not all, and that's okay. I think that as you can hear listening to Maggie talk about the journey just to understand how to board a feature level sequence, that's 5 to 10 years, of hard work, and that standard that she learned to accomplish informs all 32 sequences in the movie that she directs, And so I think make something that you're excited about, like something that you find entertaining, that you can explain to other people maybe why they should watch it. And then you're just going to learn a ton, and then you'll look back in a few years and be like, damn, I didn't know the thing, and I would have done it, but you have time, and this is not especially when it comes to directing animated features, it's gonna take time to get enough of your understanding of all the pieces to do it at a high level, and that's totally okay. I don't know if that helps you at all.
I mean, I'd also like to add that it's whenever you're thinking so much about how it's going to sell, you're just not going to make something great. It just, I think some of my best quotes from directors is like, what? I don't care about the audience. I think, that's how you have to really think. And, I think even when we were making this movie, we were like, we of course have to think that because we're working for massive studios and a lot of money, but you have to like it yourself and you have to really believe in it. And if you don't, then everybody can tell, like, the audience is smart. So I would say just, lean into what you want to do and what you're happy with and what you think is fun and funny and entertaining and then show that to other people, like B said, and learn from that, learn about your audience. That's another important thing too. And learn what works and what people like about what you can bring. And then that way you can be like, okay, well, they don't like this part of me, but this part of me they love. And so you can start to kind of craft, your sensibilities a little bit and show parts that, that are, more appealing or just work within that. And then that way, anytime you're doing that, it's just automatically going to be personal because it's you and it's parts of you. So, just don't. And think about yourself first as an audience, but then also be harming yourself. Thank you.
And we'll take a last question.
Well, last one. That's stressful. I saw your hand first.
Okay. And me just say before we go to our last question, that after this is over, we actually have to exit the Bijou because we have only paid for it for a certain number of hours. And we can't go over that. And Maggie and Chris have a very hectic travel schedule coming up, so they're going to have to head right home. So we won't have a chance to chat with them after. But I'll say good one after, but does not take that. So we all know. Okay, Mijin.
It's okay. Hi. So yeah, I'm a teen. I'm a third-year character animator. I was wondering how your idea of success when you were 20 years old compares to your idea of success now.
Oh gosh. Idea of sus is
Get the area like that deep. I mean, I'll go first so Maggie can think of something smarter. I had a speaker come to Art Center when I was in school, or a duo that had gone. I was a illustration major, and they came and they were these big, at that time, big music video directors. And their message really was like, you're all thinking about like getting one job, like aim a little bigger than that. And I was like, you're crazy, I just want a job. But then I had a job for like 3 or 4 years, and I was like, oh, there's a lot more to this. I guess there's a lot more to the industry of being a professional artist than just developing enough skills to function inside of a production, And I think it probably was maybe my mid to late 20s. I had done so much production design that I was like, I really understand this and I really love it, but my heart is somewhere else. It's in the story. And it was very humbling to go back at that time and learn how to write screenplays and learn how to storyboard and really learn what editorial was. It was kind of a 4 or 5 years in the wilderness doing that. But I think, again, like we're saying, that's okay. Like, I think you guys are studying the character animators, and that you could do that for the rest of your lives and not perfect it, right? So go all in, go to the point where you feel like the success I feel in doing this job is not enough now, and I want to direct or whatever. I want to become a lumberjack. But I think we're all so lucky that we work in the arts, and that, like, whatever, like Steph Curry, he's going to turn 38 and his knees go bad, and he's only going to get worse at basketball. And like, we just get to keep learning and growing as humans and filmmakers and artists till the bitter end. So I would say that definition of success is going to constantly change, and that's a good thing, and just embrace it. And whatever that 5 to 10 year goal is that you feel like, chase that, and then you'll find a new one.
Oh, I think for me, when I was starting out in this business, I wanted to direct. I wanted this for myself, and but to tell an original story, and in the process of being able to do that and being lucky enough to be in that position, I realized that it wasn't about me or just me, and it's about the crew, and it's about everybody. And having been part of a crew too, like, I know how much time and effort I put into all of my storyboards, like all of the scenes that I touched, and seeing an entire crew of, I don't know, they're like hundreds of people. I think our credit list is like 1,200 people, from music to art to, to production. Hundreds of people putting in hundreds of hours of their life into just an idea that I came up with is really, it's a lot, it's very wonderful, but it comes with a lot of pressure, and just knowing that many people loving something that you created, and something that we're shepherding. And I think we thought about them all the time, and that was the reason why we put in all the hours that we did. We didn't have a weekend with our families for about 2 years. And that's what it takes to make movies like this. And we did that not for our families, but for our film family. We did it for them because they put in all that time, and we wanted them to be proud of the movie that we were making. So I think for me that became success, that the crew is so proud of it. And then our cast is also benefiting, and from, in their careers, their personal careers from the success of this. So I think that for me, that became success.